I'm Simon.
And I'm Dan.
And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes us to a random article and we talk about what we find. Daniel, what are we talking about this week?
This week, Simon, we are talking about Adam Abell.
Adam Abell. Do you know... How is this going to work? Do you know Adam Abell? No, I didn't, but thanks for the tip.
Yes, yeah.
So there's a joke in there somewhere.
It's somewhere, deep down. It's definitely there.
Ooh, that's a great name.
Do you want to start giving me a guess about, the nationality of this person, perhaps their age, if indeed they are still alive?
I'm going to guess they are American.
Right, well, you'd be wrong.
Oh, okay.
But maybe think about where did a lot of sort of white Europeans come from America?
Europe.
Yeah, it's a good start. Now think maybe sort of north-ish Europe.
Germany.
Yeah, now go west.
America.
Okay, now don't go so far west.
Britain.
Yes. Yeah, and then go just north of Hadrian's Wall.
The Arctic. Scotland.
Yes. Wow. How did you know that? That's amazing.
Adam Abell. Are they still alive?
Very much not. No.
This sounds like a Revolutionary War kind of figure.
Well, I mean, he was believed to have been born in 1480. So.
Oh.
Yeah, really quite elderly chap, and believed to have died in 1540. But Adam Abell was a Scottish friar at Jedburgh Abbey.
Okay, now friars don't typically have Wikipedia articles about them, so they must have done something quite interesting.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I've just hovered over the hyperlink to Jedburgh Abbey, which is a Ruist Augustinian abbey, which was founded in the 12th century, situated in the town of Jedburgh in the Scottish borders, 10 miles north of the border with England at Carter Bar. But Adam Abell wrote a chronicle in the 1530s that gives an insight into contemporary thought and contains anecdotes that appear in later writings. The manuscript of the Ruyt or Cuail of Time is kept at the National Library of Scotland, MS 1746. It was donated by Lieutenant Colonel W. Cunningham of Caprington.
What? That's a solid name as well.
Isn't it?
This article is a minefield for solid names.
It's amazing. He was born at Prestonpans, then known as Salt Preston, around 1480. He was related to the... Oh my God. He's related to the Bellenden family.
No.
Amazing.
No.
I knew this was going to be a good one to have for the podcast. Yeah, the Bellenden family. Robert Bellenden, abbot of Holyrood, was his great uncle. Abel became a monk in Inchfrey Abbey in 1495, then moved to Observantine Franciscan friar at Jedburgh. His chronicle, the Ruyt or Cuail of Time, ends in 1537. Possibly Abel died soon after. The manuscript survived in the family of Sinclair of Roslin Castle.
Roslin Castle is Roslin Chapel is the connection to the Holy Grail, isn't it? That's the chapel that everyone thinks the Holy Grail might be buried at, I think.
Go. Yes.
At least I think that's right. I may be talking out my arse.
Yeah, only a few hundred metres from the famous Roslin Chapel.
Ah. So hang on, the Bellenden family. I'm sorry, my brain is still...
Yeah, amazing. He was related. He was related to the Bellenden family. I mean, sadly, there's no link to any of that family.
Oh, we've been deprived.
But it's interesting. So the Ruyt or Cuail of Time, Abel recounts much legendary history, including the story of King Lear and his daughters, and Macbeth and the witches. The chronicle ends in 1537 mentioning a process of divorce between Margaret Tudor and Harry Stuart, Lord Methven. Norman MacDougall thought 3 pages of the Cuail of Time that referred to James III of Scotland significant enough to print in his Study of the King. Abel said of the death of James III in 1488, "They conspirit again the king and gaf him battle beside Stirling, and there he was slain. He was confessed before with Master John Ireland, professor of theology. They slew him in the mill of Bannaburn." So it's all written in sort of like Old Scottish, if that wasn't already obvious.
I was going to say, it sounds alarmingly similar to the River Tay disaster.
Yes. I think this is why I got excited about it. MacDougall found nothing strikingly original in Abel's account of James III, which depends in part on Hector Bosa, but was able to infer that his other sources for the reign were sympathetic to James III and Alexander Stuart, Duke of Albany. and to Abel's contemporary John Stuart, Duke of Albany. Writing in 1537 of events in the previous year, Abel tells the story of his visit to James V of Scotland to Mary of Bourbon Mary of Bourbon, with the interesting suggestion that there had been an exchange of portraits. Alistair Stewart contends that Abel's moralising handling of his subject matter and the examples he shows, his own strong character, contemporary attitudes, and unique view of international events from the cloister at Jedburgh.
So I always think this about the difference between people publishing stuff back then and people writing books or whatever format they choose now. It's just back then, this guy just wrote down a bunch of stuff in the order he thought that it happened. There's no, it's not like this was peer reviewed or anything. This was just him in the bath. Yeah. This thing happened, and then my ancestors were there, and they were all super jacked.
Yeah,
they were like outrageously muscly and handsome. The Bellenden clan, we got some kind of relation with them. They didn't help. We were the ones that made Scotland. Like it's just a totally different.
Yeah,
it's a kind of insane way of like deciding on knowledge, I guess.
I think he sounds like a bit of a legend.
I was also curious about, you mentioned that they had the story of Macbeth in there, because I knew that that it was a story before Shakespeare wrote the play Macbeth. I wasn't sure how much of it was sort of historical, but for those of you who are following at home, Macbeth became King of Scotland in 1040 AD. Actually, he wasn't King of Scotland, I do beg your pardon. He ruled over the kingdom of Alba, which was only a portion of present-day Scotland. Alba is sort of the bit near Edinburgh from the looks of things, like the southeast bit. And he killed the king Duncan I, who was king of Alba, and his 17-year reign was mostly peaceful. Though in 1054 he was faced with an English invasion led by Sigurd on behalf of Edward the Confessor, and he was killed at the Battle of Lumphanan by forces loyal to the future Malcolm III. So actually, like, the bits, that's more represented in the play than I was expecting, I have to admit.
It's just it's an interesting sort of, this Roit or Quihale of time. Yeah, this chronicle that gives an insight into contemporary thought and contains anecdotes that appear in later writings. It's just an interesting sort of snapshot, I guess, of almost consciousness as opposed to anything that's meant to be
medieval
taken
shit
seriously.
posting.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it is.
It's like someone discovering a printed out version of a Tumblr and being like, this is a really unique document. In like a museum in the year 2500, there's like a printed out Tumblr feed that's like, if we look here, look at the notes under this particular gif of Benedict Cumberbatch. We really see an insight into the thirst subculture.
Yes.
Like,
bizarre.
Again, I think we mentioned this last episode. Like, how are we going to remember the present in the future? I just find that fascinating. That like the tiniest artifact that would be totally mundane now is going to be of incalculable value to future historians.
Well, I'm sure in previous episodes of this cursed thing that we call the Wikicast, we must have encountered other sort of priestly, God-fearing people before, but as far as anyone who is going to perhaps fulfill or ascend to the lofty heights of sort of patron saint of this podcast, I think it's got to be Adam Abell.
Adam Abell, top of the phone directory as well.
Yeah,
that's like so good branding for the Wikicast.
Yeah,
if like you
really
open the
easy.
yellow pages, who do you get to tell you about what happened in the past? Adam Abell.
Yeah,
right next to Aaron A. Aronson.
Yes, yeah.
But so much has happened, Dan, since we last spoke. We last recorded an episode just before Christmas. So did you have a lovely Christmas?
I had a lovely Christmas. It was really wonderful. I went up to London on the 19th. I drove from Exeter to the very centre of London. Well,
oh, blimey.
I drove into Westminster, and then fortunately it was only 2 streets out of the congestion zone charge bit, so fortunately didn't have to pay that. But that was quite an experience, having not driven into London proper before, and I don't particularly want to do it ever again. But there we are.
You tick that box.
Yeah, that was lovely. I was with my partner until the 25th. Did a bit of singing, which was nice. She was moving house, so I was helping with that. And then we went to Sussex from the 25th to the 29th to stay with her aunt and uncle, which was thoroughly lovely and incredibly restful and just lovely. And then I was back in London for New Year to go to the sort of infamous Wickham New Year's Eve party that happens every year in Westminster, which is very good fun, and it's all black tie. And we'd gone out in the day to buy, we treated ourselves to a rather nice bottle of champagne and cigars, which was even better.
I saw a picture of you on Instagram of this. Are you a cigar-man? I wouldn't have put you down as being a cigar smoker or a smoker at all.
I enjoy the nice thing about a cigar and a pipe. My old housemate and I used to smoke pipes. Is that there's no inhalation. You don't breathe into your lungs. It's the flavour of the pipe and the cigar, as opposed
Top
to
10 Dan Maw moments.
Yes.
Right here.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, you asked. So it was really, it was lovely, and it made the evening feel very special. And everybody turns up in black tie and gets to, it's all quite sort of, it's all done properly, and it was really wonderful. I stayed a few days with a mutual organist friend of ours and listened to a very fine recital that he gave, which was wonderful. Yeah, it was a really lovely time. And then I was back in Exeter on the 1st of January.
Straight back at it.
How about you? How was your Christmas?
It was lovely. We had, this was our first Christmas in our new house, Pixel wife and I, well, being husband and wife, first Christmas with that. And we had my parents over for Christmas Day, which they were saying it was the first time they'd actually had a Christmas Day and not been responsible for cooking and sort of organising everything in decades.
I bet they loved that.
Yeah, they did. I felt like they did feel a little bit lost at points. They just didn't quite know what to do with themselves.
Yes.
Which was understandable. But I just really love it. I really, really love cooking for large groups of people. I mean, obviously it was only 4 of us. It wasn't exactly large, but when it's a meal of that complexity, we threw everything in. We had a clipboard with all the different timings for the 2 different ovens.
Amazing.
Really, really enjoyed the day. Went for a little walk afterwards, and then went up to the frozen north of Bridge North to visit Pixel Wife's family briefly. And then we had our own little sort of connection to Club Wickman, in that we went over to a property in Yorkshire. There's a cottage that we rented, which belongs to Hugo's family. And Pixel Wife and I were there with friends of hers from home.
Lovely.
So we had a very quiet New Year's in the middle of nowhere, just taking the dogs for walks, getting, it was just doing very, very little. And I feel like that, what I call the gooch of the year between Christmas and New Year's, is when you actually really relax. Because everything running up to Christmas is so, and especially when we mentioned this before for singers, it's very stressful. But you actually get a couple of days, like a week basically, to just do as little as possible, go full goblin mode. And in our case, we would, go for a walk, get wrapped up really warm, be out for a couple of hours, come back home, plop down in front of the fire with the dogs, and read or have a nap or whatever it was. And it was just delightful. Really, really nice.
That's wonderful. Now, did you manage to nip out of the cottage, down the hill, turning right down the hill, over through the farm, over a small bridge and into the Sportsman's Arms?
We did, in
Excellent.
fact, go there.
It's a lovely pub.
It's a really nice pub. Shout out to the Sportsman's Arms, just outside Pateley Bridge.
They do Theakston's in there, I think. Theakston's Best Bitter is one of my favourite pints.
I mean, we did the thing. Admittedly, I was about to say, what was I drinking most of the weekend? I had a Brewdog, I can't remember, it's a green washy kind of beer, but I thought I'd try something different. It was like a lager. But I don't know if you had this as well, but over Christmas and New Year, we spectacularly over-catered.
Oh, really?
Like, we are still making our way through the backlog of food and drink that we bought for Christmas and New Year's.
Amazing.
It will be so probably until the end of February.
Yes.
We just really overdid it, especially on the booze.
That's what it's for, though, I think. You've got to,
Yeah,
Christmas and New Year is a time of excess in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
Whether it be, buying too much food and drink, or thinking that it's wholly appropriate to go to, the St James's Street in London and going to one of the most expensive tobacconists in London to buy a cigar.
All the bets are off at Christmas.
Exactly.
It's like it's the airport of the year.
Yes,
it's one of the reasons I'm glad I don't fly anymore is that I feel like airports are just it's crazy what some people think is acceptable to do in an airport. It's as if all the social rules go, and I feel like Christmas is that, but a little bit nicer. Like there's more of an undercurrent of jollity and goodwill towards men, which is definitely absent in airports.
Yeah, they can be nice. I mean, I think the thing that I've found when I've flown sort of recently is just how spectacularly unpleasant the entire process is, especially when you're flying. I mean, we made the foolish mistake of doing a Ryanair flight, which didn't actually in the long run save us much money at all, and it just made the entire experience vile. So I'm not going to be doing that again. I'll probably try and do EasyJet. But when it's so horrendously busy and you feel like sort of cattle being sort of shunted through various sort of gates and waiting pens and more gates and more waiting pens, and and you've got sort of stewards walking around with you. They might as well be wielding cattle prods. That's how sort of welcoming and helpful they can be.
Trains are just better. Like the Eurostar is just a much better experience. I know it's more expensive.
Thing is though, but then you get exceptions like Schiphol Airport, and we both have fond memories of Schiphol. After our little trip,
the tiny little trolleys that we found.
The tiny trolleys and us walking through and seeing a sort of dedicated Heineken bar, and just stopped, looked at each other, and said, "Well, we have to go and have a Heineken. We simply have to."
Go on then.
What time?
If people haven't seen this, by the way, this is all on vlog. I'll include links. I think there's 2 videos. It might be 3 actually that we did when we went to Amsterdam for VidCon. It was VidCon, wasn't it? Yeah. And they're great. They are. I might actually treat myself to a cheeky little rewatch of those, I think, this afternoon.
They really make me cackle laughing,
Really, really fond memories.
I think it's the moment when you mispronounce Gatwick as Gatwick that sends me over the edge. Like, completely sends me over the edge.
Yeah, I remember this.
And then then we did that review. We did that review of that really, really...
The cheese board review.
There's the cheese board review. I was thinking also of when we went and got that kebab down the road from our Airbnb. Gosh, yeah. And it's just like, chewing noises intensify like throughout, Yeah. And I start weeping because I asked for hot sauce and it really was quite hot sauce.
Yeah. That was a slightly strange Airbnb as well, wasn't it? You were in like weird. You were in like a nook, like a little, like as if perfect for a small burrowing mammal in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was in a bed.
If you know anyone like me who sort of resembles a vole, then you'll be fine, some woodland sprite. Yeah, it was a great trip though, and we had our museum day and the pancake fest and God knows what else. Meeting John and Hank Green. Yeah,
if people haven't seen the vlogs, meeting John and Hank Green. John, they've got tokens.
They've got tokens. John, this guy's got tokens.
It's funnily we're talking about this actually because I had to take out from storage to check if it would fit another item. I've got a frame right next to me which has the poster I bought from that VidCon Amsterdam, which is signed by John and Hank.
Amazing.
I might have to put that up. There is actually a space right here in my office that I could put that.
There's also the traumatizing moment of me completely going to pieces after meeting Dodie.
Oh, yes, you really did.
Which was one of my finest moments, I think.
And then the appendix to that, which was when the vlog came out, Dodie commented on it saying, "Oh, Dan, we should be friends." And I showed this to you. We were at a party at the time.
We were, yeah.
And I showed you the screenshot and you basically just, it was like a small burrowing mammal. You just sort of took the phone and then like kind of knelt over in the corner.
Yeah.
just had to have a moment.
I think I said to you, I need to go and lie down in a dark room with a cool flannel on my forehead just for a bit, just to try and restore some equilibrium to my internal economy.
Lock the door, tighten my restraints.
Yeah. Oh, what an amazing. I mean, that's a different kettle of fish entirely.
Yes, let's not cross that stream with Dodie.
No.
Well, did you? One other thing I was going to ask was, did you have any nice presents this year? Any good Christmas presents?
Well, I did. I got a really lovely tie from my partner, and
I love a pad thai.
The most considered, thoughtful present I think I've ever received, which is, my partner knowing me now as someone who enjoys cooking.
Very much.
And 9 times out of 10 can be found in a Benedictine monastery in Buckfastleigh singing sacred music. She bought me the most amazing book, which is a recipe book, and it's titled 12 Months of Monastery Soups. And it's absolutely inspired. It's really, and the recipes look glorious. It's absolutely brilliant.
I can't.
Yeah, right?
I can't take this seriously.
Is that not the most phenomenal gift anyone could ever receive?
12 months of monastery soups. Oh, it's everything I ever wanted.
Yeah, it's absolutely, utterly glorious. Hang on, I'm going to send you a picture of the front of this particular tome.
Forgive me, that's going to be a clip. I'm going to have to take a little clip of that one for socials.
I think it's amazing, and I love it, and I can't wait to start. So they're arranged by the month of the year. But there's some really phenomenal ones, and it's written by a monk who's written quite a few recipe books, and apparently it's very, very good. Brother Victor Antoine de Avila La Tourette. I've just sent you a little thingy on the old Facebook.
Let's have a look. So this is. Have you tried these recipes yet?
Not yet, because I need to invest in a stick blender.
Oh yes, this does the. In fact, the guy on the cut. I mean, it's not a million miles away from looking like you. If I put glasses on him.
Thanks, mate.
Just happy to help.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, much like that sort of pumpkin looks a bit like you. I suppose yes, it does resemble me.
Oh dear. That's slain me. That has absolutely slain me.
12 months of monastery soups. It's brilliant. I love it.
By comparison, my favourite present this year is possibly the best present I've ever been given, apart from life, shout out mum, was Pixel Wife got me an Imperial Warlord Titan from the Epic 40,000 range, which I have wanted since I saw it in White Dwarf in 2003.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
This was a kit, and it's the specific promo shot they have that's on the top of the box that is seared into my memory, and that specific model in that specific color, I knew that I've wanted this for years, and I just assumed I'd never be able to get one for a reasonable price because, they're out of production and they're obviously dwindling stock. But whenever I went on eBay, it was just sort of silly money. And it's exactly where a present should be, in that it's something that you would love, but you wouldn't spend that money on yourself.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to spend that money on someone else as a present, which is why, it's just played such a blinder. But if I've got it here, if I give you a little rattle, some ASMR for the people at home.
That's a good rattle.
It's all metal. It's from the era in Games Workshop history. I don't actually think I erroneously thought that this was from 2003, but I think it is actually a bit older. I think it's from the previous version of Epic, but it's the part of Games Workshop history where instead of being plastic, it's all. I guess there's about 20 different metal parts that you're going to have to pin and glue together, and I cannot wait. I am so excited about putting this model together. What's funny though is Epic, for people that don't know, Epic Armageddon Epic 40,000 is like Warhammer, but it's much, much smaller. The average dude is, I think, 8 millimeters. It's either 6 or 8 millimeters tall.
Yeah.
So, if you've got infantry, there are these tiny, tiny models on bases, and really it's this game that you play between, tanks and these titans, these big walking war machines. And so when she gave it, it was before she gave it to me. She said, "Your present's arrived, and it's not what I was expecting. It's a bit smaller than I was expecting."
Yeah.
And I think what she thought she was getting was the full fat Warhammer 40,000 version of this model, whereas this thing is about I don't know, maybe 10 centimeters tall. The Warhammer 40,000 version of this is approximately a meter tall.
Oh, wow.
And costs £1,250, if I remember rightly.
Well, she's probably quite glad that she ended up getting the smaller one then.
Yeah, I was just like, bless you for even considering getting that one. For one thing, I have no idea where I would put it.
Yes, yeah.
And it would take an entire year to put together, let alone paint. But yeah, I did think it was quite funny. She was like, "Oh, I really hope I've got the right thing. It's a tiny box." So thank you very much, Pixel Wife, for literally, I think, the best present I've ever received. And I am definitely going to be assembling and painting that one on the Simon Clark Errata channel, which is going to be getting a lot more videos this year. I've got a video series that I have already started. We're going to be doing at least a video a month on that channel. So if you're not subscribed, I'll include a link in the show notes. You should definitely, if you like hobby stuff, you should check it out. But you know what else I like, Dan?
What do you like, Simon?
I really like hearing about choral pieces every week, and specifically ones from you.
Well, strap in, strap on, and let's have the first New
Feel
Year
the G's.
choral piece of the week. Feel the G's, yeah. It's going to be the Poulenc Mass in G. And this will be my piece of the week. Drum roll, please. My choral piece of the week, my first choral piece for the new year. I sort of jokingly referred to the Poulenc Mass in G for the sake of punnage. My choral piece of the week, again, I'm going to sort of cheat and do a selection of things, but it forms one piece with a series of movements.
Okay.
It's by Poulenc.
Oh.
It's registered composition 152.
I see you know your Poulenc well.
And it's the Quatre Motets pour le temps de Noël. And it's the selection of four motets for Le Temps de Noël, Emanu Mysterium, Quem vidistis pastores dicite videntes stellam, and Hodie Christus natus est.
Banger.
Now, they're all brilliant, and much like with most Poulenc, it's all sort of really quite complex music. There's a sort of running joke that Poulenc cannot be sight read, which I think is probably true, not only because it's very challenging just to sight read without having done any work to it, but you can absolutely guarantee that you're not going to do the piece justice if you haven't put time in and really, really done some work. But on Saturday this coming week, the St. Peter's Singers, which is the sort of chamber choir of Exeter Cathedral, will be singing a service of choral evensong, and the anthem for that service are all 4 of those motets in order, which is going to be really cool.
Now, it's funny that you should pick that as a piece, actually, because I, before Christmas last year, had the delight of going to watch my wife perform in a choir in Bath, and they did all 4 movements of the Poulenc, and for the record, I absolutely think the last one is the best. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion.
Hodie Christus natus. It's just silly, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun. It's joyful.
I was speaking of the last one, actually, just as an aside, I was talking to a mutual organist friend about this, and he was saying that the trick of doing that piece well and doing it justice is to be so much like doing any Poulenc, is you must be incredibly strict with yourself as to what Poulenc says he wants in terms of obviously dynamics and rests and things, but also the metronome marking, the sort of crotchet value that you get at the beginning of the piece. This mutual friend of ours said it should be no faster than a camp waddle, which is absolutely what it is. That's
yes,
because it just has to have that feel of that. Yeah, a camp waddle is perfect description for the speed that it ought to be taken at. Sorry, but yes, go on.
Perfect. Yes, and I'm delighted to report, as of last week, I am actually singing in that choir with my wife, potentially just for a term. I'm just depping at the moment.
Yes.
I won't say what the name of the choir is, because I need to have a chat with my wife about whether we're going to talk about it in public. But for the first time since leaving university, I am regularly singing, and I am over the moon about
it. That's great. Oh, that's so good.
And the stuff we're doing this term for this concert is really interesting. There's a lot of things that I've done before. Like we're doing the Bruckner Oss Justi, we're doing the Pet, the Deer's Cry, Abendlied by Reinberger. But we're also doing Morgenlied, which I wasn't aware it was, there's a broader piece, and there's different movements that Abendlied is part of. And we're doing a lot of pieces by a composer called Wolfram Buchenberg.
Oh, right.
Who I'd never heard of before, and all the musicians I've spoken to have never heard of. I would characterize them as like a more interesting Germanic Eric Whittaker. Really cool. The pieces that we've done so far, we've only had one rehearsal, so we haven't really delved into it properly, but really, really interesting. I'll send you a link, actually, when we finish recording, and I'll put a link in the show notes to one of the movements we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's an earworm. Like, it's really been in my head, but it's really, I think, at least, very, very interesting. So, bit of choral news, and I suppose a second choral piece of the week from me. Don't worry, I'm not gonna edge in on your turf.
No.
This is very much your corner.
Edge away. But... It's fine. Critics' Corner, Simon.
Yes.
And now I don't know about you, but as far as actually sort of using this Christmas period to relax and maybe try and watch a few things that I'd like to watch, I sort of haven't really done that at all.
Oh, okay.
I've just been enjoying being able to go out and sort of wander and actually probably do a bit of sort of have a bit of time away from consuming sort of visual media on a screen. You know, I've read quite a few books, which I'm enjoying very much. But I did want to mention on BBC iPlayer at present, there is a film starring Bill Nye, and it's called The Limehouse Golem.
Oh, I've heard about this. Yeah.
It's a sort of Victorian murder mystery thing. And I saw that Bill Nye was in it, and I thought, oh, that'll be fun to watch. So my partner and I watched it last night, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt, it's one of the most dreadful films I've ever seen. It is absolute hot, steaming dog shit. It's unreal, and it made me cross. It really made me cross. And it's a shame because the performances are fine. Bill Nye is good, you know, as you'd expect. Olivia Cooke is also very fine. And obviously Olivia Cooke having we've seen her most recently in House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
and in Ready Player One, which is a film I'm obsessed with. But oh my goodness, what an absolutely dreadful, dreadful piece of film.
I just looked it up because I knew that it reminded me of something. I've seen most of this. My parents had this on TV once, I remember, and I remember watching it and going, "What?"
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like a gory murder mystery mixed with some sort of dark comedy stuff. It's like there's two stories going on at one time, neither of which is fully explored or developed, so it's lacking on both fronts. What did it do? It brought in 2.35 million at the box office in US dollars. I don't know how much they spent on it. I can't imagine an enormous amount of money, but
it looked like one of those what could have been a BBC 1 hour special that had just been stretched into a feature film, but with a commensurate budget of not very much.
Yes, yeah. And I just got really, really cross, really, really cross. And it's interesting because, it's, as I understand, there's characters in the film that are based on real people.
Right.
The actual film is an adaptation of a murder mystery novel by Peter Ackroyd.
Yes, it had that vibe, I remember, yeah.
But there's, Karl Marx, for instance, is in it for some inexplicable reason. Dan Leno, who was a stage performer in music halls in the Victorian time, was there as well. George Gissing was also there. So they're trying to bring in these real people to, I guess, lend the narrative a bit more credence. But it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And after getting maybe a quarter of the way through, I turned to my partner and said, this is awful. Like, this is really bad. And she said to me, yeah, not great, is it? And then it was one of those times where you're watching something that is objectively shit. But she sort of leant over to me and said, well, we don't have to watch this if you don't want. And before she finished, I said, well, no. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's give
it a shot. Yeah.
Well, I want to see how it goes. I mean, as it turned out, and as I think suspected, it was a total waste of time giving it the benefit of the doubt because it was terrible. And it just sort of made me think, as soon as the credits came up, I just sort of hit menu, returned to the iPlayer home screen and just let out a big sigh. I was like, well...
Well, that's an hour and a half I'm not getting back.
105 minutes of my life utterly ruined and wasted. Yeah, I mean, I apologise if Bill Nighy and Olivia Cook are listening, as I'm sure they are.
I mean, they may well be. You never know.
I thought your performances in it were fine. I think you were let down by a really, really dreadful screenplay. So Jane Goldman, who's written... She co-wrote the screenplays of Kingsman: The Secret Service, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, X-Men: First Class, Kick-Ass, Stardust, X-Men: Days of Future Past.
Wow. Oh, okay.
She wrote the screenplay to The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe, that adaptation of the stage production. And she also wrote the script for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, which was for that Tim Burton film, an adaptation of the novel. So she's done a fair bit of stuff. Oh, and she's married to Jonathan Ross.
Oh, didn't see that coming. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh gosh. So, well, yeah, I mean, as I understand, it looks like they've done quite a fair bit. But, God, it was dreadful. I mean, really poor.
I mean, well, I have a recommendation that is uniformly positive. So I can, very, very happily give a recommendation that's a bit of an alternative. And that is for the BBC series Ghosts. Have you watched Ghosts?
I've seen bits of it, yeah.
Right. So I've been told several times that I should be watching this show, and it was from friends whose opinion I very much respected, and I don't really know why I didn't listen to them, because it took me years to catch on to this, and we were finally basically frog marched in front of a TV by Pixel Wife's sister, and we watched the first episode, and then the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, and we have completely fallen down the rabbit hole of it. It is one of the best things I've watched in a very long time. I hope any Ghosts fans in the readership, please do let us know your thoughts on the show, and even if it's just to pester Dan to watch it. But I think it's fantastic. It's partly fantastic because you can recognise a lot of people in some of the characters. In particular, there is a poet character who longs for and is sort of a hopeless romantic, specifically in regards to the main protagonist, who is Dan. It very much is you, Dan. It's specifically it's you mixed with a healthy a splatter of Corin.
I see.
But there's an awful. If sometimes Pixel Wife and I are watching, and the character will say something, we look at each other and be like, Dan, yeah, Dan, okay. So I would highly recommend that you watch it now. They're only 20-minute episodes.
Is this Thomas, the character Thomas?
Thomas, the character, yes.
Yeah, I know the character you're talking about. Yeah.
So I'd highly recommend you watch it, if nothing else, just to find out what the alter ego version of you on screen has been up to. But it's wonderful. I have nothing but good things to say about it. It has a really high gag per minute ratio, and yeah, we've just completely fallen for it. Really, really love the show.
Amazing. Love that.
And we also we watched the first episode or two of Rev, if you've watched that.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet, no.
It's good. It's Tom Hollander, and it's very accurate to at least what my experience was like working with the church. For those of you that don't know, actually, I should probably let me do that for both of us. So Ghosts, very, very quick synopsis, is set in a haunted house where there are all these ghosts from different periods of history who are stuck in this area, and a new couple move into the property, and after the events of the first episode, a woman in the couple has a near-death incident that means that she can see the ghosts, but her partner can't. And it sort of goes off from there. Whereas Rev is about I think he moves from somewhere like Sussex. It's a vicar who previously worked in the countryside and then moves to an inner London borough and takes over this sort of crumbling church and a dwindling congregation and all this kind of thing. And I suppose you could say it's a bit like a modern Vicar of Dibley. But the characters that you meet in it, him, his verger, it's not the bishop, it's the sort of his boss, basically, in religious terms, not God, and members of the congregation and things like that. It's so spot on to it. You will know every single one of those characters, Dan. Sure. If you watch the first episode, you'll know exactly what I mean. Yeah. So that's another. We haven't got quite as deep into that, but that's another recommendation. Is for Rev.
I'll give that a look.
And if I'm permitted, one more.
Of course.
I say we, meaning myself and some other people on stream, including the lovely Bryony, have been playing some Plate Up, which I'm sure you're aware of. I don't know if you own the game.
I might do. To be honest, I haven't launched Steam on my laptop for probably a year.
Oh, blimey. I barely have, to be fair.
Well, I haven't been. I mean, I've been so busy with law and exams and things, and maybe I'll have a bit more time this year while I'm currently trying to find a job. So
I would highly recommend Plate Up. It's the game that the Yogscast most recently produced, and it's similar to Overcooked, but I think a lot more fun in that you have to customize your kitchen and your menu evolves as the game as a round goes on.
Yeah.
And it's a cooperative cooking simulator, basically. But you also have to take customers' orders and then serve them at their table. And it's very, very, very fun. So shout out to Bryony, who I'll include a link to her in the description. She's been wonderful introducing me and teaching me how to play. But also I'm playing it today with members of the SciComm Collective. So Cat Does Maths, Samwise 2450, and Thomas Astro Sci. So if you get a chance and you fancy it, I definitely think we could do a bit of gameplay of that, and maybe that's something to put on Spongy and Electric, actually.
Absolutely, I'd love that.
I think that would suit us.
Hey, speaking of Spongy and Electric, I don't know if you've seen, and this can belong in Critics Corner because I'm very excited by it. Last night, I watched the first episode in the new Minecraft series from
Hat
Films lads, which I am so looking forward to watching because it's already I'm getting waves of nostalgia, and I thought how fun it would be I think we ought to have a go at doing an interesting Minecrafty thing. I think that would be really really fun. Something that whether it's the sort of Vault Huntery thing or not, or just something that almost that harkens back to just general multiplayer back before Shadow of Israfel was a thing, because there's so much in the game now, and I haven't played it for years.
Well, we played it a bit on stream, didn't we?
We did. Well, yes, during lockdown, it was very popular, wasn't it?
We did a hardcore survival game where we just I kept dying.
Yeah.
So I'd be keen for that. I think
that would be really, really fun. So maybe if people think that's a fun idea, then maybe we could do that.
Yeah, let us know.
I made that custom Minecraft skin. Do you remember?
Palestrina. Yes, you were a choir boy.
Yes, yeah.
A choir boy, you'll hear me?
With my University of Exeter hood on the back of it, which is quite impressive, I thought.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah, I did the whole hog.
There's a lot of nostalgia this episode, isn't there? We're just a lot of us reflecting on things we have done or used to do.
Yes, yeah.
We'll do them again one day.
I'm sure we will.
little lady.
Hello?
Would you like to come say hello?
Oh, it's the cat. Right, yeah, got you.
Hey, yeah. Yes, I heard you the first time. Nope, she does not want to come here. Okay.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of cats, Simon, we find ourselves in Patreon Corner.
Oh!
Patreon Corner is that time of the podcast where we get to say an enormous thank you to those who support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Wikicast.
Mm-hmm.
Without Patreon and without our generous supporters, we wouldn't be able to keep making this ridiculous thing and shoving it into people's ear holes. It pays for our hosting, it pays for our marvellous editor, and it pays for the plans of doing some real life stuff. And now that we're in the new year and I've got all of my exams out of the way and I'm basically finished, I think we can make something happen fairly swiftly. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Now is the time, definitely.
As far as how the Patreon works, you can donate at sort of multiple levels if you like. You can do a sort of conventional $1 a month, but if you feel so moved, you can increase that to $5 a month and choose a category of your choosing, either top cat or top dog, supporting myself and Simon's wishes for which pet is the best. Obviously, now that's obviously top dog.
No, it isn't.
So I would like to say an enormous thank you to those who support at top dog tier.
Dan,
Yes.
I have dreadful news.
What's happened?
There are 18 top dogs.
Gosh.
And there are 17 top cats.
Oh my heavens, this is... I knew it would come. One day, I knew it would come.
This has never happened in the history of the podcast.
In the history of the... I mean, we've been doing this for how long? 4 years now?
Too long, some would say.
That's extraordinary, and I'm over the moon.
I'm flummoxed.
Top dogs who are listening, please just take a moment to sit back and smile smugly to yourself at our slow victory. You know, I knew that it would happen one day. I knew that it would, and I had absolute faith in you. So I'd like to reach out and say a hearty congratulations and thank you to Jay Wright, Ben McMurtry, Peter Reed, Codzo, Colin J. Brown, Lexi at Front Desk, Hasse Hansen, Henry VII, King of England and of France, Lord of Ireland, Aaron Jorgensen, Naf Laroque, Andrian with an N, Chan, Ben Caples, Martin Narciso, Christian from the Alps, Amy Bonney, Lexi at Front Desk's boss, Sophie, and Brummy Mike.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Well, Team Top Cat, I don't know what to say. This is the typical cat indifference that has led us to this situation. If anyone here is listening and is not currently supporting at Top Cat level and would like to pledge $5 a month to keep the podcast going, and most importantly, like the smug grin off of Team Top Dog's face, please do consider pledging at patreon.com/the Wikicast. In the meantime, I would like to thank the current Top Cat patrons. Specifically, I would like to thank Dan Hanvey, Isabella Strowski, Cole Mansfield, Oliver Berghart, Layla Medina, Omar Miranda, Rents Kirk, Will Janice Humphreys, Nafi Iftikhar, Izzy CC, Jack Easton, Simon P, Christopher Betterton, Abu El Ella the Physics Boy, Dame Valerie III, Nathan Flaherty, and Anna Reifer. I mean, I know that we can do better than this. I just know that we can. So, thank you to everyone who's currently supporting, but if there are any more Top Cats out there, please. Dan can't win. Please. And now we find ourselves in Correspondence Corner.
That glorious part of the podcast.
I would like to start this part of the podcast with a brief apology. I met up with our friends, the one and only Dan Hanvey and Imogen, who we went over, Pixel Wife and I went over to meet them. And Imogen told me that she has emailed us, and I think it was a little while ago now, and that it wasn't read out on the podcast, and I was just looking through, and I'm currently filtering through our spam filter just in case it's been caught by it, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. So Imogen, I am very sorry, but I'm not seeing your message in here. So it's not that we've deliberately excluded you.
Yes.
We're not just being mean.
No, not this time.
It's not this not this time. But yeah, I don't think we have it here from you. So I'm very, very sorry. But yes, we can't read your message out because we don't have it. I have also realised that looking for our spam filter, there are lots of messages that are starting with, "Hi, Spong."
Nice. Brilliant.
They seem to think that we are called Spong, as in Spongy and Electric.
Yeah. Amazing. We love that. I have an email here from Kieran, and it simply is titled Spotify Wrapped. And it so reads, "Dear Messrs. Clark and Moore, I was just listening to the Father Christmas episode of the podcast and was a bit surprised that the other listeners of the podcast have spent such a small amount of time listening last year, brackets 55 hours, since I had, get this, I had a whopping 176 hours.
What?
If my maths is right, I'll attach just a screenshot just to make sure. All of these hours, of course, I do not regret spending. Kind regards, Kieran, age 3 16th Queen Elizabeth II.
We haven't made 176 hours of podcast.
That's extraordinary. Yeah, 10,577 minutes.
But we've only done 114 episodes, and they're not an hour long on average. So by choice, Kieran has chosen to listen to an episode more than once.
Well, see, now I can sympathise on this point, because when I listen to podcasts and audiobooks and things, I will regularly repeat listen. Now, Kieran, I think you might need to contact your sort of medical health practitioner and just make sure that the repeat listenings of this kind of content isn't going to do you some serious long-term damage.
Yes,
in the future. But thank you so much for letting us know. That's lovely. And I mean, 176 hours is extraordinary.
Thank you for your dedication, and please seek medical attention.
Yes.
And also, a brief memo, do remember that we now have a new unit of time. We are no longer measuring time in Queen Elizabeth because RSVP, she is no longer with us.
Yes.
We are now measuring time in Prince Louis.
Yes.
Because it's the most inconvenient unit of time possible. Whenever you want to measure a unit of time, you've got to go to Prince Louis of Wales' Wikipedia article and then look up how old they are. And then divide whatever measure of time you want to measure by that number.
This dynamic unit of measurement, of course, is courtesy of Ben, who wrote in November.
Oh, we're going to reach a Prince Louis milestone before too long. He was born on St. George's Day, 23rd of April. He will be turning 5 this year.
Gosh.
You'll be pleased to know.
Bless.
And now we have an email here from a certain Sophie, and it is titled, "Wouldst thou consider my dog, Geoffrey?"
I see. Very good.
And it reads as follows. "Dear Morecambe and not so wise."
Yep.
That's great. I love that. All right, Lids, long time no speak. I write to you today with great happiness and joy to say that I am finally up to date on the Wikicast episodes, which we have now ruined by releasing a new one. I have been a long time spasmodic reader of the Wikicast, continuously forgetting and re-remembering that the podcast existed since the release of the very first episode. Wow. I've been struggling through the huge backlog of drivel that you release on a semi-regular basis for so long that I thought the nightmare would never end. However, I am pleased to say that yesterday that day finally came, and I shall tell you for why. I recently secured and started. I just went full Gavin and Stacey then.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that.
That was not even intentional, Dan. That just happened.
Yeah.
I recently secured and started my very first graduate job in London, and so moved down south from glorious Liverpool towards the end of the summer. This has meant that I've been doing lots of driving back and forth to visit my parents and boyfriend back home, with the average journey time of around 4 hours, give or take. In an attempt to keep myself awake during any late-night monotonous driving, I have been able to whack on an episode of the Wikicast, which has kept me awake in sheer terror at the horrific non-tent being forced into my lug holes. So thanks for that, lads.
An absolute pleasure.
On a more serious note, I just wanted to say huge congratulations to Simon and Pixelwife on their nuptials. Thank you very, very much. Having had the pleasure of being a small part of your lives for a very brief time, I am absolutely ecstatic for the pair of you. I wish you all the happiness in the world. Two lovely people such as yourselves truly deserve it. And of course, this is Sophie, who I don't know if we would have mentioned on the pod, but has featured in the YouTube vlogs that I did. Sophie sang with us in chapel choir for, was it a year or was it 2 years? I actually can't remember.
I thought it was longer than a year, I'm sure.
I think it was longer than a year. And was an excellent soprano. So I wasn't sure if you were going to mention it, Sophie, so that's why I didn't say it at the start. But yeah, it's really, really lovely to hear from you, by the way. Sorry, I've just got a big grin on my face. It's just always nice when this happens. People sort of...
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's so lovely.
Also, I don't know why people that know us choose to listen to the show. I feel like
that's
if people...
a particularly sort of masochistic decision.
If people know us in real life, then they're like, well, I mean, I know it's a waste of time.
Yes.
Like, there's no way that those two are going to make something good. So, Sophie continues. Additionally, a huge congrats to both of you, Dan and Simon, on an incredible podcast. Listening to you both always reminds me of the wonderful times I had in Exeter, particularly in the choir, and the wonderful people I knew there. For your general amusement, here is a picture of a drawing I did absent-mindedly a few years ago whilst listening to one of the earlier episodes of the pod. It's safe to say I am no artiste. Do you have the email open, Dan?
I do. This is probably one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Can you describe the picture, please?
Well, it's a picture in reference to an old podcast episode when somebody had written a fantasy fan fiction.
Fan fiction, yes.
You were some sort of paladin cleric character, and I, unsurprisingly, was a wizard.
Fumblemore here.
And at one point, your sort of solution for dealing with anything was to whack out your enormous sort of warhammer.
Oh, what did I was going to say?
Yes, and just start smashing to pieces while loudly exclaiming, "The gods will decide our fate."
The gods will decide our fate.
And then there's me as a whiz next to you, just sort of with a speech bubble saying, "Oh, for sake."
This is great, Sophie.
I love this. Oh, Sophie, I love this. Thank you so much.
Good tidings to you both. Sophie Brooke, aged, oh gosh, here we go. 857,965 BBRILs. That's Benjamin Britten Rejoice in the Lambs. Hashtag Free Jeffrey.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
P.S. Oh gosh, this is a roller coaster at the end of this email. P.S. I made a promise to myself about 5 years ago that once I had caught up on all the episodes, I would finally sub to the Wikicast Patreon, and I have. Dogs are the best thing in the world. Simon, sort your life out. Yeah. It's her. She's the reason that I've been dethroned.
Sophie, this is. I mean, this could not be more perfect. Not only have you. I mean, it's lovely to hear from you and see this. I mean, utterly fantastic. I want to print this out and frame it. I mean, I love it.
We'll have to put this on.
We've
the Discord,
also managed to upset. We've been able to tip the scales in Top Dog favour for the first time ever in this podcast, which is extraordinary.
Shameful. And PPS, Dan, the Cock and Me Gay incident is still one of the most simultaneously hilarious and frightening moments of my life. Yeah. Please tell the story on the pod.
It's certainly one of the most frightening moments of my life. And I genuinely thought that a certain choral director was going to kill me on the spot.
I was not present for this.
And on that bombshell, Simon, I think I might tell that story next episode.
Oh, you tease.
You tease.
You Cock and Me Gay tease. It's a good one. If you are, oh, good grief. Yeah, I wasn't present for this, and I'm glad I wasn't.
Yeah, it's frightening. It really is frightening.
Well, Dan, what have we learnt today?
Today, Simon, we learnt about Adam Abell.
Oh gosh, we did.
The Scottish friar at Jedburgh Abbey who wrote a chronicle or manuscript, the Rite on Quahail of Time, which is kept in the National Library of Scotland. We
did indeed, and we pontificated a bit about chronicles in general. We talked about Macbeth.
We did. The mentions of various sort of anecdotes around the James III of Scotland, and then after sort of exhausting our conversation of Adam Abell, and rightly, I think,
the Bellend family,
elevating him to the position of patron saint of the pod.
Has he been canonized? Are we canonizing this guy?
No, we're canonizing him. 100%. I don't think. I mean, I think he just died a regular death. There was no martyrdom or anything, which is a shame, I think. Although I'm sure he's quite glad.
You think that the patron saint of the Wikicast should die horrifically?
Well, I mean,
you join some of our reviewers.
Self-flagellation. I mean, somebody's listened to this podcast for 176 hours, so I think we could probably make a sort of connection there. We finally, after that, got a chance to catch up because we haven't spoken to each other since before Christmas.
No, indeed.
And we exchanged lots of jolly Christmassy bants and New Year tales.
And lots of recommendations for things, including something not to watch.
Oh, yes. The Limehouse Golem. Whatever you do, don't bother. It's really not worth it.
And several things to watch. I would particularly like to recommend Ghosts. And if people fancy picking up a new game, Plate Up. Definitely my recommendation.
And a double whammy choral piece of the week.
Oh, yes.
The Poulenc Four Motets pour le temps de Noël. And Simon's new discovery.
Some Buchenberg. Yeah. Yes. That's all for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice. Join the Discord, and if you'd like to see our faces, check out our YouTube channels, Spongy and Electric.
The worst films you've seen over Christmas, your New Year resolutions, and other thoughts on the show can be sent to us at spongyelectric@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Join us again for another tumble down the wiki rabbit hole,
and we'll see you next time. Oh gosh, now I saved something. What was it going to be?
Why does it sound like you're dropping a hint that you wanted to talk about bees?
What was it going to be?
Bee.
God, I'm all up a buzz about this.
Coming out in hives here.
Yes.
What was I thinking about? I'm sorry, I'm just droning on.
Yes, yeah, very good, very good.
Stop
Honey.
being such a queen. Oh, honey.
Oh, beehive.
How's the end of the podcast looking, Fergus? Is this there?
Yeah, it's
Hi,
what I mean,
listeners.
spoiled for choice, really. I mean, there's so much nonsense.